This conference will now be recorded.
Did we lose Bill?
Yeah, I don't see him.
There he is.
Oh, there he is.
All right, I don't know what happened there. I am present. We're still on mute.
Okay. Meister is present. Nybo
Present.
and Streller. Where'd she go?
Yeah.
Is the thumbs up easy to do on this?
Truthfully, I'm not entirely sure how to turn it on or off. So
Now, I think Judy is on a regular computer because she was having problems with it.
Okay. Do we keep going, Jessica?
I would say so. Yeah, I think at this point we have a quorum. So carry on.
Okay, so pledge allegiance. Did you want to put up your flag or?
Brad.
That's not the flag.
Excellent.
Okay, I pledge allegiance
Pledge allegiance to
To
the flag
of the United
States
States
of America and to
and
the
to the
republic
republic
for
for
which
which
it
it
stands,
stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice
for all.
Good job.
Okay. Agenda approval. Are there any additions or questions to the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, a second.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call. Anderson?
Aye.
Christensen?
Aye.
Meister, aye. Nybo?
Aye.
And Streller? I'm sure she would say aye.
Hey, Meister.
Okay.
If I may, can I interrupt?
Yeah.
Sure, Meister.
Yeah.
Just because we have quite a few folks joining us that might not be used to this, just to walk through the format real quick, if that's okay. And just for those, we typically do Zoom meetings for city business, but we have a simultaneous planning commission meeting, so we had to use GoToMeeting. So typically we're better at this. We just don't know the GoToMeeting format all that well. But there are public comment opportunities. There's one at open forum, which is anything not on the agenda. And then there's comment opportunities later on at the business item. So just for those that are attending, there will be comment opportunities. Again, there's two of them. There's the open forum for stuff not on the agenda, and then later on. So just to clarify that as we move forward. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Brad. Okay, minutes of the January 21st meeting. Any questions or comments?
I thought they looked great. Thank you, Jessica. I move that they be approved.
Okay, second.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call. Anderson,
Aye.
Christensen,
Aye.
Meister, aye. Nybo,
Aye.
and Streller. Okay, open forum. Jessica?
We do have some people on the call. Honestly, I have no idea how to have them raise their hand. If you do want to speak, if you want to either unmute yourself or also simultaneously turn on your camera, this would be your opportunity. I will note that if you're here for either the winter trail maintenance expectations, that's going to be coming later, as well as the Cook Lake Highland discussion will also be coming later. So if those are if those were items that you were looking to speak about, that might be a better opportunity. Unless, Brad, you feel otherwise, I guess.
No, it sounds good. Just for those who have video, it might be best if you unmute your video so it's on and maybe just give us a wave or something. That might be easier than everyone trying to go at once. Again, sorry for the lack of GoToMeeting experience.
Okay, I don't see anyone
I would say that
unmuting
you're
their
good to
video, so should we
You're
keep
good to
going?
Yep.
With our presentations? Okay. We have the Director of Public Safety. Is that Goshak? Welcome. Matt?
Thank you, Chair Meister and Commissioners. I just wanted to give you all a brief update, kind of my once a year visit with the commission. So I'll give you kind of a once around on how things are going with the police department, and obviously take any questions that any of you might have. So things are a little bit up in the air with the city hall remodel, and the police department's working out of a conference room right now, so it's a little bit challenging, but we're all making do at the city. The department's just finishing up a triennial audit from the BCA. I'm sure many of you saw in the media, we're working on making arrangements for our canine officer Zeke to hopefully pair up with a new partner. That'll happen later this summer. Zeke's going to be working with a handler and getting a little more training back in and getting used to the getting back on the road for police work. We've hired a new police technician. If any of you knew Emma Remillard, she left last summer. Our new police technician is Amy Fadden. She started last week, so she's been a great addition to the team. We're adding 2 new CSOs. One of them, Jacob Anderson, is starting on March 3rd, so you might see them around the community and running errands and trying to help us keep up with a few things. We did have 2 officers that left the department this past year, so with those 2 that left and 1 promotion to a sergeant position, we're in the process of hiring 3 police officers. We're in the middle of, obviously, most of you have probably heard by now, we're in the middle of a pandemic, so we're managing our way through that. And Jessica Christensen Buck has been pulling double duty and also being a big part as serving as our EOC manager. So she's been managing a lot of information and data, and she's been doing a great job. Really, it's helping with a citywide function, managing the pandemic. The police department's still, keeping an eye on staffing as it relates to operations for COVID, but we're also trying to plan for, at least be prepared for the potential for additional civil unrest related to the upcoming trials this summer in our region. And across the state, really, law enforcement is stretched pretty thin, not only with the pandemic, but planning for civil unrest and possible protests related to Line 3 up in the Bemidji area. Legislature is working on some SAFE Act funding to try and help communities deal with that. So we're, trying to pay attention to some of those things. There's been a lot of changes, obviously, you saw in law enforcement over the past year, some from the legislature, and there's talk about more of them. One of the new changes our officers are learning about the new and different deadly force standards and a lot of ongoing training, just trying to keep up with some of those changes. But as it relates specifically to parks, we're still enjoy partnering with the Parks Commission, and we do our best to make sure that we're talking with JCB and Kevin Matson as we're trying to help those come together in a way that meets all of our concerns. And some of the things that we really try and look at from the public safety standpoint as it relates to parks, again, is really lighting, signage. We try and just pay attention to how the pedestrian traffic and pedestrian flow interacts with the rest of the community. Also, vehicle access, emergency vehicle access within the parks, and those are just some of the things that we pay attention to. So that's kind of what's on our radar right now, and I'd be happy to take any questions that any of you might have.
Matt, I just have a couple of quick questions, I hope. CSO is a community service officer?
Yes, sorry, I didn't explain that very well. Yes.
Okay. And how does that position compare to a regular officer?
Sure. So it's a civilian position, and so an example would be, there's so many things that need to be accomplished during the day that probably don't take a licensed police officer to do them. And right now, some of that falls to Lieutenant Ryan Burns. If it's dropping a car off for repairs or getting in for scheduled maintenance, taking radios down to dispatch to have them programmed. They might also handle parking complaints, and also looking at some ordinance violations in the parks. They can kind of hopefully be a friendly presence and just be aware of what's going on there and making sure that their people are following the rules as that goes. So that's a really good conversation to expand upon a little bit more, hearing from you guys as well.
So they do have a face in the community. They're not just doing paperwork and running errands, but they will be visiting with citizens. Is their uniform different, or how are citizens going to recognize them as being part of the Corcoran Police Department, but not actually a police officer?
Sure. So their uniforms will look like our reserve officers currently. So they'll wear a light blue shirt with patches that say CSO on the sleeve. Right now, they'd be driving one of the SUV-looking squad cars, but we have a CSO pickup truck that will be arriving and getting set up this year. That's more commensurate with the duties they need to perform.
Great. Yeah, that sounds very strong. That's good. Thank you.
Thanks.
And I just have one quick question. So you had said that you check for emergency vehicle access, things like that. Has there been any issues at the parks so far, or anything we should be looking for in the future as we add parks that we want to be aware of?
Sure. We have not had any issues. First of all, we like to know the capabilities of the roadways and making sure that there's access. The biggest thing we look for is emergency access. If there's a fall or we need emergency access, can an ambulance get back there or not? If they can't, what's their alternative for transporting someone? And the deeper somebody gets off the beaten path, the more our concerns. We just need to know what that plan is, and also what the capacity of certain areas are. Obviously, for instance, a boardwalk might not support a squad car, but as long as we can support an ATV or some other emergency vehicle, us just kind of being in the loop on what capacity is for different transportation modes, and that make sure all of our officers are aware how to get where we need to go. And that kind of also ties into the signage and the lighting, so when people need help, they know how to identify where they're at in a way that we can find them.
Okay, sure, great.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you,
It's
guys.
always really helpful every
Yeah.
year. Catch up. Okay, next we have Corcoran Public Works. Kevin Matson is here. Give us an update.
Yes, good evening.
Hi, Kevin.
Thank you, commissioners, for allowing us to participate in your meeting this evening. The parks world has grown a lot in the last year. There's a lot more parks that we're onboarding, so I'll try to do a brief recap of what happened in each one, and then kind of open it up for more questions so we can focus on where your kind of concerns or priorities are. But our oldest park is City Park in downtown. Some of the major work that we did there is we were able to replace the park building this year. To council support, it had been leaking pretty severely, and we did get that replaced. So that was a pretty big goal for us to kind of stabilize that structure and extend it out until something happens with the broader park plan that you're aware of. So that was a big deal. We did a lot of improvements to the ag line of the ball field. So we work in coordination with Jessica in the rec programming, and we had several requests to address that, and we've been working to do that. So ag lime was a big effort this year. And then thanks to Commissioners Meister and Anderson, they've been very patient, but we did make some adjustments to our buffer mowing in those areas. And I know there's probably more that we can do there, but we made some incremental steps, and I think that we're moving in the right direction and getting our mowing staff and seasonals on board. And I'm sure we can do more, but that was a good first step, I think. So thank you for your efforts in providing that feedback. Some of the needs in downtown City Park, the hockey rink boards continue to kind of be a high maintenance deal. We know that there's future planning coming, but the boards are in pretty rough shape and require a fair amount of maintenance. The tennis courts is another item that I know there's been conversations about, and we're looking at different options there. So that's kind of on our radar this year to figure out. The picnic shelter roof is getting replaced through insurance. It hasn't been done yet. It's just a insurance thing, so that will get fixed in 2021, hopefully. And then, of course, we have the big plan, the park planning in that area with the purchase of the former Rockford School District property. So we're excited about those opportunities, whatever they might be. So Jumping over to the Ravinia development, the Wildflower Park, the first kind of initial phase of installation and equipment and trails. And I know there's some benches that were added are virtually complete at this point. And now we're kind of switching our focus, at least from a public works department, would be more to how are we going to maintain this, how are we going to set it up. There's some wildflower areas that, you know, are new to us to focus on, so we'll have to work with folks on that. But that's kind of the shift there, and I think that park turned out pretty nice to date. City Hall, the City Hall site itself, we've kind of left alone with the remodel going on. We did some tree removals in the back by the gazebo. We have more to do yet. We made some mowing adjustments there, and I know one of the projects probably for conversation moving forward is some potential rain garden. It's floated around out there, so something to talk about in the coming years. The open space park at Ravinia, you know, we haven't done anything with it except for absorb it into our park plan. So that's something that at some point we can prioritize and focus on a little bit more. Up at Bellwether, the development continues to rapidly come in. So we're, that we have the opportunity there to work on that park, that wooded park with the trails in the boardwalk. So I know you guys have been part of conversations there. So it'd be exciting to get that boardwalk implemented and maybe those trails paved and cleaned up a little bit and operational with some of the roads and access to the north kind of becoming more real. In terms of staffing, we hired, it was really an open position for about a year, probably almost a year. We kind of held off with COVID, but we hired a young man by the name of Cole Lenneman a couple months ago, and he's really fit in well. We're really excited about what he's bringing to the team. Another change is Mike Pritchard has kind of transitioned out of the admin group and is officially now in the public works department. And his primary focus is, building permits, right-of-way management, not necessarily park related, but GIS and other things, and utilizing GIS better, which could impact equipment inventorying and safety inspections and stuff. I can see that kind of being absorbed into him over time. And then we have another budgeted maintenance worker hire mid-year this year, so we'll be onboarding one new person as well. And in addition to seasonals and part-time folks that we're starting to get in a good rhythm with, and we're really excited about the team and where we're at from a staffing standpoint. And then one note here that I skipped over, I apologize. Another big effort this year is focusing on some fertilizer in some areas and making sure we're doing that appropriately to kind of revitalize maybe some areas that haven't blossomed fully. So that's one of Pat and Brandon's goals this year too. So with that, saving the trail maintenance conversation to later, I'd be happy to answer any questions about what we did or where we're focusing, or anything you have in any of the parks that we're talking about here.
Kevin, this is sort of off the wall, but more a natural resources thing. How is Corcoran's use of road salt changing over the years? Are we cutting back? Are we finding alternatives? What's the status on that issue?
I think it's been stable for the last, or at least since I've been here. Okay. It was about 3.5 years. We haven't made any significant adjustments. We're monitoring the usage and application. On the gravel roads, we really don't put any salt down at all. It makes it worse. We put, grit down, basically small pulverized rock. Mm-hmm. So it's really the paved surfaces, and we attend class and training. The new MS4 permit, for the folks that pay attention to that, is out right now, so it will be implemented. It's a 5-year permit. They're a couple years behind on it, but that has more of a focus on chlorides, and there's some things. We're doing a gap analysis now, so there's more to come on that, but that will be a conversation here over the coming months and into the next, 5 years, primarily driven by the new MS4 permit.
Great, thank you, Kevin.
Kevin, is the new park building you were talking about, is that the warming house?
Yeah, that green structure down, yeah, the warming house. It's the warming house and it's storage. Yep, that got a new roof on it.
Oh, a new roof. I thought you said it was replaced, like the whole
Oh,
building.
no, the roof was replaced. The roof was replaced, which will help a lot of what's going on in the building. It was kind of the first step into being able to do more in the interior and whatnot without, throwing away money. So.
Sure. Val, did you have any questions, or Phil?
I'm good. Thank you,
Okay.
Kevin.
That was
Yeah,
awesome.
don't have any questions?
Phil? No
Nope,
question?
no, I'm good. Yeah.
Okay, agenda item 7, unfinished business.
Thank you, Kevin. I just wanted to say thank you, Kevin. You guys are always really great out on the roads and keeping us all on the roads as opposed to sliding off.
You're welcome.
Okay, winter trail maintenance expectations.
So Sharon, I apologize, on the enhanced agenda, I had left off open forum. So this would be the opportunity for folks to speak if you want to invite them to turn on their camera and then wave a little bit. And then we can call on them.
Okay, is there anyone here who would like to speak to this issue of winter trail maintenance? I think you could just unmute if you would like to talk.
I would imagine most are here for the Cook Lake Highlands portion of it, but.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Are you presenting this, Jessica, or is?
I'll start it off and then I'm going to pass it over to Kevin. He's going to probably do most of the talking just from the public works standpoint. But I do have a little slideshow for you just to kind of give an overview of the general idea of what we're going to talk about. So you guys had talked about this back in March of 2019. So it's been a couple of years now. During that meeting, there were topics of discussion about mowing and how frequently that was going to happen, as well as the maintenance of the buffer areas next to the trails. At that time, we also talked about plowing the trails. And at the time, the discussion was maybe the homeowners association and the developments can do it for a year, and then we would kind of punt on it and then come back to it. With COVID, we did have a lot of meetings get canceled. So unfortunately, it didn't circle back. So we're circling back now. So some items that we are looking to discuss: the demand versus desire for summer and winter maintenance. And then some of the winter maintenance priorities would be the streets, the ice rinks, the trails, both in the new developments, as well as like rural trails like the Three Rivers Trail along 19. Overtime eligibility, equipment needs, boardwalks, so Bellwether and Blue Stem Circle, and then using contract versus city staff as far as time and employees. So I will pass it along to Kevin because I think he's going to be the one who's going to be doing most of the talking, as it is his department that would really be doing it. So Kevin, the floor is yours.
Sure, thank you. And I think really the goal for tonight is for the commissioners to really ask questions and provide input on what your recommendation on a policy would be. So some of those bullet points that Jessica and I worked on putting together was really to spur thought, and I can get into each one or answer questions based off of that. But we have some opinions on those that we think make sense now versus waiting. But really, I think the conversation tonight is really what your input is on some of these topics so that we can develop a policy. Stepping back to a couple of years ago when we talked about this, we thought maybe we'd be onboarding some trails by now. And we officially haven't taken on any of those responsibilities yet. in the new developments. We expect again that coming into this next winter season, late summer, winter, we would be assuming some of those responsibilities. At least, I mean, I can see them in Ravinia, Bass Lake Crossing, and Bellwether in some of the first editions. So that's kind of why we've paused for 2.5 years here. We just didn't have that demand, so we're trying to time it with when we'd actually have to figure it out. One other change is in the 2021 CIP, there was some funds dedicated for trail maintenance equipment, and we are targeting a broom with that for a combination of reasons that attaches to some of our existing equipment. But we can get into that conversation. So there has been, I believe, $10,000 allocated to some attachments for trail maintenance to kind of get us off. But really, when public works staff analyzes trail maintenance, it's actually somewhat challenging because every snow kind of demands a little bit different piece of equipment. Every trail type kind of demands a little bit piece of equipment, and it's based on expectations. It's based on policy. It's based on how do we get stuff from Northwest Corcoran to Southeast Corcoran in terms of trailering. So it's actually fairly complicated, but we just want to step back, high level. What's the policy? What's the vision? What's the demand you're hearing versus the demand we're hearing, to try to kind of formulate that policy. So I'll step back now, and if you guys direct me to focus on an area, I'd be happy to talk in more detail.
So I guess my first question is, let's say all these parks come on board, and I think you'd mentioned 3 of them. Do we have any equipment to handle that now, or are we essentially starting from scratch? And then ideally, if you had all the equipment you needed, what would be the costs associated with all of that?
Good questions. We'd have like kind of, I don't know if patchwork equipment's the right term, but we'd make work with what we have. I think that $10,000 gets us, if we have a sweeper that can attach to skid steer, we can handle most snows. A 12-inch one, obviously, we're going to struggle with. But I think the goal is just kind of incrementally build, kind of based on need and demand and policy. So I think we have stuff to limp by, but it's not the preferred ultimate equipment that is high efficient. Once we have a full, enough of the trail system ready to go, that we want to do it the right way. So we're in this interim phase. So I think we're not heavy on equipment. So if we could pick up a piece every year or something like that, that would be kind of a goal for the department. Especially at the rate we're going to be onboarding trails, that seems quite reasonable to us. Your second question related to equipment, I mean, real, we're talking like all of Tavera's built out, all of Ravinia's built out, all of Bellwether's built out. I mean, everything that's approved to date, and maybe some more that come in, 5 years from now. I mean, you're probably talking $75,000 to $100,000 worth of equipment, maybe. And don't hold me to that, but it's a real number to budget for. And there's other alternatives to kind of limp by with other equipment, but then you're spending more time. You're potentially having a lower quality product. Do we want ice on the trail? Do we want to keep the trail? Which trails do we want to be clean for 55 and older folks? Which ones do we want hard pack on? I mean, it gets quite complicated and quite complex. So it depends really, but I can see, $100,000 in the next 5 to 8 years as a reasonable number to build towards.
Okay, from a staffing perspective, how are we now versus what do you think we'll need?
I mean, I would say, like, just due to like the spacing of where our developments are happening, and it's like it could be a full day by the time we, once all the trails that we have approved, it could be a full day for a couple people to drive around and do once it's built out, per snowstorm. So we would likely use seasonals or part-time snowplow folks to kind of ramp up. So I think that could be absorbed, kind of with the rest of our work. It would be seasonal, so we'd work with the seasonal budget primarily for, I think, for the short term to handle any of those ups and downs. So
Okay.
it's a factor, but it's one that I think we can manage fairly efficiently in the next 5 to 8 year window if we're kind of targeting that for planning.
Okay, gotcha. I just have one other question. So, I personally don't like to spend money when I don't have to, but obviously if we're building out trails, we will need something at some point to take care of these trails. Would it be feasible to kind of do what, like you were saying, well, maybe we buy a 10,000 piece of equipment this year and then we'll add on something next year or something like that. But then in the interim, when the need comes up, so like you had mentioned, a 12-inch snowfall, well, we may not have the equipment for that. Can we contract out for that type of thing in the meantime while we build up to that? Or is it kind of a one or like we either do it or someone else does?
I think it's more either or. I think it's somewhat complicated to have them come in on a, 1 or 2 times a year. I think it's either or it could be, by development. I mean, we could take certain trails that we want to maintain and we say the HOA developments, we work with their HOA. So it could be strategic, I guess. So I think the mix that you might be referring to is, maybe the Ravinia trails are done by an HOA and if we wanted to, for instance, the 19 trail, I know it's 3 rivers, but it's in our community. So it really depends on the policy. So I think it's more of a strategic location conversation about contract versus city staff than it is by event, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, that does. So I guess my concern would be, okay, let's say we buy this 10,000 piece of equipment. Okay, that's great, but it doesn't quite get us where we need to be. So that's why I think we need to figure that out before we go ahead and spend this money and get this piece of equipment. Because if we commit to it, well, then we better do it. But maybe 10,000 doesn't quite do it. So after we buy the 10,000 piece of equipment, we hear, oh, you know what, this year is terrible. We need a $20,000 piece of equipment now. So it'd be nice to kind of have more of that info ahead of time. That would help make those type of decisions, I think. And I know that's hard to get to, but the more information we have, I think the better we can discuss it too.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are always looking to acquire pieces of equipment that are versatile, right? So it has parks, trails benefit. It can also be used for other, purposes. So, and then how that gets allocated is a whole separate conversation. But you're absolutely right. It comes down to expectations and the vision for the trail maintenance. We're personally not hearing a lot of calls, and this gets to the demand versus desire. We're personally not hearing a lot of calls at the public works level regarding trail maintenance yet. Maybe it's because the homeowners don't know about it or know that the developer, or maybe they're still moving in and getting settled because the trails aren't fully completed yet, so they're kind of segments anyways. But we're not seeing that demand, at least at the staff level. And I don't know if you guys are seeing that at the community level, at the commission level, but that's one question is, when do we start doing this? Is it demand or is it desire? What's the vision? That's what we're trying to, that will help us know what to bring forward to you and say, where's the urgency at? I hear you, where's the urgency? We don't want to spend money if there's no urgency, but.
Absolutely. Okay.
But I think it's fair to say, one quick thing. I think it's fair to say is once you start doing it, it's a lot harder to stop doing it, from an expectation standpoint. So something to factor into that policy for sure.
Yeah. In your opinion, when would be the best time to kind of take it over from the city perspective versus bringing in some outside help? Right. So like, I think you would know best of all, hey, we have this much staff, we have this much equipment currently. If we add on 1 or 2 more pieces of equipment, yeah, I think we're good for a long time now. Or is it more like, boy, we'd still be kind of skirting the line here. So maybe we should outsource it for a few more years, see how that plays out, and then have the city take it over. So what's your opinion on that?
I guess my opinion is if we're getting a ton of calls from one development, so call it Bellwether or Ravinia, and we get 90% of our calls from that neighborhood, I would say let's look at contracting. Let's have the conversation and just say that's where the demand is. Let's figure out a plan that makes the most sense for that neighborhood. If we're getting calls all over the place and the expectations are really high, then I think it tends to navigate in-house, because I think I just think in-house you can control expectations a little bit better if that's the demand and the policy. So it's a little bit difficult question to answer, but it's driven by a lot of factors. So, and hopefully that gives you some context to where my thoughts are. But.
Yeah, no, that's very, very helpful. So
Kevin, can I just maybe add to that? And that's where Kevin has the skill set all day long to find what operational area makes sense, contracting, in-house. What we're looking for really is what the vision is to accomplish that. So, is it a high priority that we have these trails? They should be cleaned as soon as possible at every trail we've accepted. It should be full trails, really looking for the priority level so Kevin can make those decisions or bring his plan to the Parks and Trails Commission with, here's how I want to accomplish your vision Parks and Trails Commission. So just want to clarify that too. It's hard to really start from the what equipment are you going to use level when we really need to focus on what are we trying to accomplish here.
Okay, gotcha. I guess for that, then I would say, Kevin, that what you had said sounds great. Is that okay? Let's wait till there is demand there, right? But I think ideally the city should be the one doing it. It's our trails. We'll have more control, like you were saying. As if you contract everything out and there's issues, well, now you're dealing with the third party and you're trying to get them back to kind of re-clean it or something. So I think long term, I don't know how long it is, but ideally the city is managing it all. That's kind of how I would see it.
Yep.
I'm not sure what everyone else thinks.
Val.
I agree. I think at this point it should be contracted out or get numbers and see if it's feasible, and then take it from there. Eventually, yeah, the city probably will have to do it, but I don't think we're at this point yet to be hiring these people. And I guess it would be seasonal, but it's a lot of equipment and that kind of thing for, I feel like, the few that we have right now. There's more coming, and I think we're going to have to take it over at some point. But to see what it is to contract it out, because you can have a season with no snow or no maintenance to be done, in the winter.
Right.
And then, and then we're sitting on employees or whatever it is that you're paying a lot of money. My opinion.
Kevin, do you know the condition of the trail on 19 this winter? Is it pretty dry so it's walkable, or I haven't really looked at it?
No, they don't do it. Excuse me, Three Rivers Park does not do any winter maintenance on that trail. So it's hard pack. It depends on the month. Right now it's hard pack. There's a couple of residents actually in the north end that kind of take it upon them to plow, occasionally when they want. And to be quite honest, of all the trails in Corcoran that we get requests to maintain, it's County Road 19 Three Rivers Trail.
Okay.
And it's not a high volume, but that's what makes it to us. And maybe because we're in Northwest Corcoran and they drive by, but that's what, just from a feedback standpoint, that's what we hear. It's from a select few that routinely say it, but.
As I remember, the Three Rivers puts the responsibility for winter maintenance on each city, and we can do what we want. They want to know about it, as I remember, but we could plow it or not, and we've always chosen to not plow it. But that, we we certainly could, but you know, I guess my concern is that we haven't. I don't think we've done a particularly effective job of asking the Corcoran residents what they would like for their trail. And if folks don't know that they have the option, then it's hard for them to have an opinion. And so I would think that it would be, I mean, a good idea to work with probably the Ravinia Homeowners Association, or you know, some folks who are in the neighborhood where the trails are, to ask, what do you want? And we can be really clear that when the city is spending money, it means that your taxes go up. Folks in Corcoran understand that there's no free lunch. It's not like that money is going to come from somewhere else. But to see what their opinion is, and like you say, they may like walking on the snow. They don't, you know, or it may be really important for them to have bare, dry trails. I could see different developments having different wishes, but I think we should ask and let them know that we would listen.
Yeah. Tom, that is a great idea. The only thing I want to add though is I think we have to be careful as to which part of Corcoran are asking, because if you're asking one development, those people are going to say, yeah, we want those trails plowed because everyone else is paying for it too.
Well,
so
okay.
Right. So we just have to be careful with that.
Sure.
Because yes, there is absolutely a cost, but it's not necessarily, well, it's borne equally by everyone, but the benefit maybe isn't received by everyone, at least not as much of a benefit. Yeah, but that's a great idea. The community, and we don't know, do they want it, do they not? Do they want open trails that are plowed every single day? I don't know. I mean, me personally, I don't run a lot in the winter. I don't want my taxes to go up, so that'd be kind of my vote. But I'm just one person, right? So what is everyone else thinking?
For sure, I think that we should give everyone the option to provide feedback, maybe through social media, in the newsletter, kind of the usual way we contact Little City, but make sure that the folks there know what they can ask for. And I think that's just true in general, that you know, parks commissions need to be responsive to everybody who lives here, and that's for anything that the parks can do. You know, if folks don't know that they can ask for frisbee golf, they probably won't ask for it, but if they know, maybe they will. You know, they've asked for a splash pad. I think that's been pretty clear when you give them the opportunity. So we've proved that some fairly expensive things are a high priority.
Can I just throw out there just for my feedback and benefit, what we focused a lot on the winter maintenance portion of these trails. And there's a summer component too, primarily related to mowing and potentially dog related, garbage cans and pet waste and whatnot. When we start onboarding these, it's not just winter time, it's what is the vision in the summertime as well. So if there's feedback or thoughts on that.
Yeah, I would probably put more emphasis on the summer care, because obviously more people are going to be using it during that time. So in terms of priorities, yeah, definitely more maintenance in the summer. I would defer the winter maintenance to take care of the trails better during the months when everyone uses it.
Personally, I'm more of a low maintenance. Long grass is good. So that wouldn't be a high priority for me.
So just so I understand it, so your vision would be long grass right next to the bituminous, or would there be a small strip that kind of prevented overhang? Yeah, because these are like 8 foot. Yeah, okay. So reasonable edge mowing would be, okay.
Yes.
Is that what we're doing now? Are we doing anything right now, Kevin, on the maintenance?
No, we don't we haven't accepted the trails yet, but we will probably do that sometime in the late summer, early fall. Potentially, if it's really up to the developers to check all the boxes, but it's reasonable to believe we'll be absorbing some. So we'll have to figure that out. Yeah, I mean, even late summer, fall, we could be that. There's a possibility we could be having to make a decision on how we're mowing some of these. And again, same thing. If the first ones we onboard are a couple phases in Bellwether and Ravinia, the HOA has a mower right there, and so working with each individual HOA, might make sense when we have short segments of roads or trails, excuse me. The caveat is it's not just that, it's managing it. So we have to find a staff to manage it, make sure they're mowing, deal with questions. So it's not just completely handed off, but it lowers the number of staff. So it makes sense definitely in the short term for consideration, depending. I mean, mowing is another one that could be blended.
That was not to make the conversation more difficult, but one of the things that Kevin and I had also discussed was if it is just a short segment of trail and it's not a full complete trail like a loop, or how long does it have to be that the maintenance you would feel is required? I mean, is it worth it if it's this smaller strip? That's kind of your guys' call, I guess, at this point, but that was one of the items that we also discussed.
So if we have a strip of blacktopped trail that's a quarter of a mile long but doesn't end, it just ends at this point, what do we want to do with that? Okay, well, my guess would be that we should at least maintain it minimally so that it doesn't deteriorate that blacktop any more quickly than it already will. I mean, if you let those things grow completely, you get trees growing right up next to the blacktop, and pretty soon it's hoisted the blacktop off. So we need to at least do that and make it look like it's a real city trail. If we have city signage, we should have some city maintenance.
Do you think we should be at another meeting looking at maps closer as to what exactly we would be responsible for? So we are looking at, is it a quarter mile or is it 6 miles? And okay, I know it's not 6 miles, but as to, what are we responsible for or going to be looking at taking over? How much is it really? Because to me, without a map, a detailed map in front of me, it's kind of hard to make well, I mean, I know this is a suggestion, Kevin, but to take a look at, oh, she's trying to do a map. That's our girl.
This is actually in your packet as well.
It is.
Or it should be.
I know, but it's pretty tiny. I mean, it's the whole
We can try
community.
and
It's
zoom
some
in.
pretty tiny ones.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely. I hear you that we're not going to solve it tonight. It's just the first step is the vision, the vision that Brad alluded to, that then that'll help us build the options. So it's not going to be settled today,
Kevin, I'm interested in knowing what it would cost, what the costs involved in plowing 19 would be. If that's the area that gets the most requests, I think we should try and put some dollars to that, both in terms of time, as kind of a schedule. If we need new equipment, it's pretty straight shot, but it's long. It's 6 miles, long as Corcoran is. Yeah.
And I want to be clear. I think it's like a half a dozen times a year. So we might get 6 requests. So it's not volume. It's not high volume. It's just that's where we're getting the calls. So
sure, no. And I this isn't a request for a detailed study,
right? No,
something informal. But you're good. You can do it.
And there's other options we can do. I know that the Three Rivers had considered and run a trial program where they did rebate some of the cities to plow their trails.
Okay.
And we declined that a couple of years ago. So I don't know if we could reach out to them and just check in and say, hey, what was the success of that program? Is it still alive? Is it gone? Basically, what was the success of that, and get that feedback. So
Yeah,
that
and
wouldn't be too hard.
maybe Medina or Loretto is doing it on the other side of 55. If they are, maybe they can make an extra run up and back at a good price. I mean, it's
Yeah, the more you can kind of connect and the more trails you have, the better like per foot price you're going to get, obviously. So,
if we can trust them,
right. But in the summertime, Three Rivers maintains their trail, so that's really that route's primarily winter focused. But
Mhm.
And for summer trails, for me, Three Rivers is sort of the gold standard. If we can do as good a job as Three Rivers does, we're doing an excellent job.
Agreed.
Okay, anyone else, any comments? Thank you so much, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks.
no problem. Nice to see everyone. Hopefully, I see you a little bit more this year.
Get
That
rid
would
of
be
COVID.
great.
Thank you.
Bye. Okay. We are on agenda item 8, new business, Cook Lake Highlands.
So this, I think, is
Brad?
what many of the people are here to discuss as well, Chairmeister. This would probably be their opportunity to speak up during the public comment. Unless, Brad, do you usually do the presentation first?
It's kind of hit and miss. I just wanted to say, I think it's good just to, people have been patiently waiting for almost an hour now, so I think the sooner we get them to speak, the better. I just wanted to iterate for those who are here, this specific review is really related to the parks and trails components of the development. The Planning Commission will certainly be reviewing this, but the purview of this group is truly the parks and trails portion of it. Not to saying you can't say what you want to say, but that's what this group is related to tonight. So just want to interject that.
Question before we get started.
Yeah.
I don't know who's going to speak first, and that's fine. But once again, call me old, but I can't see much on this map of where the trail in that new development would even. I don't. Can you all? I mean, are we look at me? Are we looking at this map? I'm
And
not sure.
I'll walk through that with part of the presentation. There's a PowerPoint, but essentially I'll walk through that. I guess it doesn't to the commission. If you want me to walk through a couple quick slides, it's pretty quick. It's up to you.
Yeah, because then we know what these residents are talking about, where or where these connections are. Is that? I don't even.
Yeah, I would agree with the short overview would be good.
Okay.
Just
to pull those up, I can go through all of the slides pretty quickly here. I'm going to play my best version of Kendra tonight since she's at the Planning Commission meeting right now. But the application is for rezoning, preliminary plat, and preliminary PUD, which is planned unit development, plan for Cook Lake Highlands. Next slide, please. So this is the area, it's known as the Schaummer piece. It's just north of Lions Park. It is the border of Corcoran as it heads into Maple Grove. It looks like a number 4. The middle piece is the Met Council lift station. So the Met Council has that piece right in the middle there. But you have Bass Lake Crossing to the west, Maple Grove to the east, and Lions Park to the south. Next slide, please. So this is the development. It is a little hard to see it. I can't control the mouse, so I'll kind of describe to Jessica where she's driving here. Where she's at, that's 74th Avenue. Oh, not yet, thank you. 74th Avenue that comes in from Bass Lake Crossing. That would travel west to east. And that there's a proposed cul-de-sac. And at the north end of the cul-de-sac, I should say there's a sidewalk along the west side of that. North end of the cul-de-sac, correct. The trail is proposed to be relocated to this location. The current location of the trail is actually, I would say, on the back of those first 5 houses, and then bends into those homes around the wetland, and then heads kind of back where it's showing on this part. But it's single family detached villas in this location. There's a proposed market rate apartment next to that. East of that is a proposed Applewood Point senior condo development. And then on the south side, you have both a memory care facility as well as a daycare facility. And that's kind of the general overview of the entire site there. Next slide, please. So as mentioned, there is an existing trail dedicated with the Bass Lake Crossing development, and this was kind of a negotiation that took place for that trail to go in. This has been a long-term vision for the Parks and Trails Commission. I think it was in the 2020 and 2030 comprehensive plans of having a really strong corridor, strong off-road corridor that actually starts down at the Medina border and goes all the way through Corcoran. So we talk about, you know, a significant 6-mile trail with Three Rivers Park District. This would be a significant corridor for someday in the future for Corcoran north-south, being all off-road, however. So it would require a change from off-road to on-road for a portion of it, not for all of it, just the portion that would be on that road that I just talked about. You'd have to vacate that easement. And as mentioned, it is not consistent with our comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan envisioned this being as much as entirely possible off-road, which is why the location was selected along the previous development. Not to say that can't change. Next slide, please. So this again kind of shows with the Bass Lake Crossing development where the trail was originally planned. So pretty easy to see there, I believe. And then to the east, that just was a ghost plat to see what development could happen, not what should go there. Next slide, please.
Oh, that helps.
Yeah, thank you, and good idea. The existing off-road trails includes a lookout area over the wetland area. That proposed trail would tie in at that location, so that would not change the lookout area if the commission was okay with moving the trail on road. But it's really a policy question. Is off-road the way that we wanted to focus per comp plan, or, you know, it's a block? Does it really matter to accommodate this type of development moving forward? Next slide, please. As far as public sidewalks as well, the proposed public sidewalk is along the south side of 74th Avenue. So a sidewalk on the south side of 74th Avenue, that's that east-west road. And then a public trail along the west side of the cul-de-sac that goes north we talked about. And on the north side of the 74th Avenue would have a trail as well. And then just one note, at the staff level, our comment is that the sidewalk should connect to County Road 10. So if you actually go over to the east side of 74th Avenue, Jessica, and follow on the south side of the road, we believe it should stay on that side and go all the way down to County Road 10. So it actually bend south, and you can have the crosswalk over to actually other side, sorry, east side. Thank you. So right now it shows it jumping over to the opposite side of the road. We believe that the sidewalk should continue on both sides of the road, essentially all the way down to County Road 10. So nothing for discussion tonight. It's just a staff comment that I wanted to make known there. Next slide, please. On the east and west side of the private drive, now that's the north-south road that goes in between the apartment and the Applewood Point. That's a private road. There's a sidewalk that runs between those on either side, and there is a private connection from the cul-de-sac, at the end of the cul-de-sac, to those areas as well. And then internal sidewalks for each of the buildings on the 4 lots as well. And then there is an emergency or fire access lane planned around the Applewood Point development that would function as a public portion as well. Next slide, please. So park dedication, since we don't show any proposed additional trails, really we're looking at cash. So estimate would be about $650,000 of park dedication. Of course, that's based upon what actually gets built. This is just an estimate at this time. So again, when we don't show additional park features to acquire, we take cash in lieu. Next slide, please. So really that's it. The recommendations on the public trail is the most significant one. Do we want to retain the off-road trail or allow this proposal? And really, if you have comments on the trail and sidewalk connections, I'm happy to hear those. I think they're pretty solid, but maybe I missed something. And then I don't think there's too much to talk about with the park dedication, the cash in lieu. That's really, you know, part of the plan, I guess we have. So hope that's helpful.
And Brad, correct me if I'm wrong, but regardless of if that trail moves, they don't get park dedication for that.
Correct. Correct. Thank you.
So with that, Chair, do you want to open it up for public comment now that you guys are all kind of on the same page? And then
Yeah.
we can kind of regroup after
Yes, I'd
that.
like to open it up. Yeah.
So if anyone would like to make a public comment, I would start by turning your camera on, and then we'll kind of call on you from there.
I would know, it looks like we have just some callers. We have at least 3 that are on phone only.
All right, so I do see a couple here. If you guys want to state your name, it's name, address, and then go ahead and you have 5 minutes, right, Brad?
All right, yeah, typically we stick close to 5 minutes as possible.
Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm Sue Zappa, and I live right by the trail. I live on Fur Lane, 7482 Fur Lane. My concern is removing the trail as it exists now for a development. I wrote a previous email to Brad, and I believe he forwarded it on to some of you. That trail is brand new, less than 2 years old. Currently, it's used extensively by the residents on both North and South Bass Lake Crossing. And all I can see is that it benefits the developer, and the current residents are SOL. And I just wanted to voice my opinion, but then to hear also what you that represent me have for thoughts on that.
Can we bring up a map once again of exactly where, I'm sorry, was it Sue
Sue, yes.
was talking about?
Yeah,
I know in the past when I lived in Maple Grove, it was right next to Plymouth. And when Hennepin County put in the, what is it called? The Hennepin Corridor Trail along the backside of a property, the people that had a connecting trail to that, it was private. They chained it off and put very unwelcoming signs along Hennepin County Corridor Trail that led to County Road 47 over there. And it just always left me with a very unfriendly feeling toward other residents, even though they weren't my Plymouth residents because I was a Maple Grove resident. I mean, it was very, posts and chains and signs, and wasn't a good thing.
Thank you.
And you make it private, then the city, as I see it, has no way to maintain it. And I currently think that our association was doing the mowing the last summer.
And just for those who are joining us, so typically during the public comment opportunity, we'll have, feedback from the residents. We'll hear everybody, and at the staff level, we'll write down questions, and then afterwards we'll answer all those versus getting into dialogue back and forth with everybody for 10 or 15 minutes. So if that's all, we can move on to the next person. Thanks, Sue.
There's one other thing.
Hi, I'm Ron Zappa, back in Georgia. Is there any possibility to consider retaining the current path as well as tying in from the Hook Lake project? So in other words, combining the two.
And keeping the existing trail.
Thank you.
Thank you both. And if you did you guys have any more questions or comments?
No.
Okay, I have the question down, and then we'll circle back once we get through everyone. All right, if there is anyone else interested, if you want to unmute your camera, and then
I saw someone.
I saw someone earlier.
Yeah, Beth.
Beth is the applicant, so we'll make sure that she has an opportunity to speak after the public comment opportunity as well.
And if I need to pull up any maps again, I will. It's just hard to have the map and a small screen of your guys' faces when we're trying to do public comment. So bear with me.
No problem.
So again, if anyone is interested in making public comment, if you are on a phone, you can also unmute yourself.
That's fine too. Sometimes
Jessica,
people just want to listen what's going on, so that's fine too.
Yep, Jessica, how would someone on a phone unmute himself?
Brad?
You threw that right at me, huh? I guess I would say this. Again, we're not too familiar with GoToMeeting. This is the Parks and Trails Commission. It's an advisory commission. If there are people that weren't able to get their opinions out exactly at the meeting tonight, reach out to City Hall tomorrow. We'll make sure we can either talk to you or have an email from you and make sure those comments get incorporated in the next step, which is the Planning Commission. So we'll update this packet with comments we received, and then it'll go to the Planning Commission and then to the City Council. So if those people were either didn't want to comment now, want to follow up, or aren't able to because of technology that we're not comfortable with, just reach out to myself or Jessica. Our emails are on the website, or call the main number at City Hall, and we can certainly make sure your voices are heard.
I would also like to apologize. Unfortunately, it doesn't even give me a last 4 of the digits of the phone number, so I can't even say this number. If you'd like to speak, I'm going to unmute you now. So my apologies on that end as well.
It's up to you, Chair, how long you want to wait till we move on with further discussion.
Okay, I think we can start our discussion.
Ms. Chair, would you like me to focus on those 3 questions that I wrote down from Sue?
Yes, let's do that first.
I wrote down 3 anyway, and maybe Jessica, if I missed something, let me know. So one was regarding the public or private. I heard the conversation of, can we keep the trail public? If it were to be moved along the sidewalk, that would be public. So it would be a publicly maintained trail. We wouldn't allow any gates or signage or fence or nasty grams, I guess, to take place. So it would continue to be public. Maintenance last year, absolutely correct. If you heard the previous conversation on this, we really haven't accepted any public trails. We have to have a certain level of maintenance of those phases completed before we accept them. So certainly the HOA did maintain those last year, and we'll continue to discuss those maintenance activities. And then regarding keeping both the existing and incorporating a new, that's something I would actually defer to Beth Husted, the applicant, to answer that question. So it's up to you whether you as the commission want to have Beth chime in right now with any comments you would like, or if you want the commission as yourself as a whole to talk and ask questions. And again, Beth and staff are available too. So I think those are the questions I had. Jessica, did I miss anything from your notes?
No, those were what I had as well.
Repeat the last question.
It was regarding whether the existing trail could maintain its location and maybe shift the development over so it could stay, and then also have the sidewalk in front of the homes and the connection on the north of the cul-de-sac, is the way I understand Sue's question.
Okay.
Have it both ways, essentially.
So I think at this point, it's up to you guys if you would like Beth to kind of fill in any gaps as she sees fit, or if you guys have any questions for her specifically, you can go either route with that.
I think I'd like to hear what Beth has to say.
Correct. Me too.
Okay, we would like to listen to Beth.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to at least be able to answer some of these questions and explain a little bit about our thoughts and what we are thinking and planning and proposing. The easement for this trail was granted by the Shomers and myself together, working with MI Homes, because they could not get the trail, develop the trail without coming onto the Shomer property at the time because of the wetland. So we did discuss, and John did write John Rask from MI Homes did write a letter to me that I passed on to staff, that he did understand at the time that the reason we were granting that easement for him was to collaborate, to cooperate, but that at the time I did not know what our plan and our site plan would look like and how it potentially could affect our lots. And so when we did, we've had a couple different iterations of this plan, and we did listen to the feedback from the adjacent neighborhood Bass Lake Crossings, and they really wanted, you know, some sort of a transition of similar housing. So I have reached out to MI Homes, and we are working with MI Homes to possibly be the buyer of these lots. And so the homes would be very similar to what's in Bass Lake Crossings, and they may even likely share the same association, but certainly would be of similar product. So it is about a 600 foot, 600, maybe 700 feet of a relocation of that trail. And it would be, as Mr. Martin said, it would be a public trail. And it would likely be maintained by the same association that is proposed to maintain the current trail. So so we're just asking for your consideration and staff's consideration to allow us to just relocate that 600, 700 feet. It would tie back in to the Bass Lake Crossing Trail right at the property line. And one of the other things that we have added and are proposing is a trail that actually extends from that cul-de-sac across the back of the property, along the wetland and along the lake, so that people could, if they chose to, they could come from the west and continue to walk along the north property line and then up the east property line, where the fire lane that would be maintained by United Properties and Applewood, that they could walk along that. So we're trying to make some connections, and we're also trying to consider connecting at least a conversation with the city of Maple Grove. They have an extended, they have a trail that also goes around Cook Lake that they'd like to connect with our trail system too. So I think that pretty much explains it. If you have any questions, let me know.
Do we have a graphic that shows all of this? I have to say, the description is good. I just can't quite track it. I'm too old, apparently.
Yeah, I hear you, Tom.
I would definitely need someone to guide me on this, but I would assume it's on this one.
Yeah, so what Beth is talking about is, if you start at the top, the north of the cul-de-sac, if you head kind of southeasterly, follow that trail. So there's a connecting trail that would then connect over to this area. And then on top of that, if you follow that kind of north and around to the east further, that's really meant to be a fire access, but for everyone else, it'll be a trail. And so this would be a nice functional, really comprehensive trail network that wouldn't necessarily be privately owned, but it'd be open to people to walk around. So what Beth's highlighting is how her development really jives well with connecting the whole area together with the city's park system, I believe.
And then on that same drawing, can you sketch in where the proposed rerouting of the public trail is going?
So this is where the trail currently is.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of comes in like this-ish.
Yep.
What they're saying is that it would come like this
Okay.
and hug the front of the houses or the front of the villas, excuse me, instead, and then up and back through there. I can hear, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. Ooh, there we go.
So the best point we're talking, yeah, 600 and some feet of change.
So the front of all those villas is only 600 and some feet? Is that correct?
It's around that. I don't have an exact measurement.
It's about, the villas, they're the same, it's the same as the villas in Bass Lake Crossing. So yes, along that particular drive is about 600 plus feet, and then it would continue along 74th, and so that would probably be another 700 or 800 feet along that portion of 74th. And the trail currently ends right, or comes in at the back lot line of our property and the back lot line of their property.
And then goes north and kind of northeast along the backside.
Well, I'm sorry. I guess it depends on if you think if you're starting on the south side or starting on the north side. But it would be
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. So 74th, I'm thinking is if directionally is the south side of it. And yes, it does run. It actually runs along, runs along the MI property line until it gets to, it crosses at the wetland. Is really the reason that we gave that easement, is because they couldn't get their trail system around the wetland, and they couldn't go through the wetland. And so I thought there would be, we just felt we wanted to accommodate, and that's why we gave the easement. And John and I talked about it, and it was one of those things that I said, John, it might have to move because I don't know what our site plan is going to look like. And he was totally understanding of that and just said, we'll work with you, Beth, but it's potentially going to be the city's trail. But we did have that discussion at that time.
Who is John?
John is with MI Homes. He's the vice president of MI Homes.
Mm-hmm. And what company are you with again?
My company is Trek Development.
The Trek part, okay.
Yes.
So as I look at this, I mean, if this development goes in, the trail might be through essentially next to the backyards of these villas, or it might be on the cul-de-sac in the front yards of these villas. But that's primarily the difference as I look at it. Am I seeing that correctly?
Yes, it is. The problem with the backyards is that it actually impedes into the pads of these homes.
Yep.
So they wouldn't, yeah. But
And you need the pads to get close enough to the wetland that there's not room for the trail.
Right, there's a buffer that has to be respected and correct. Yep, and we need room for the buffer.
So,
and I don't know if the trail, I'm assuming, but I don't know this for sure, but that the trail cannot be built in a buffer. I don't know that, but I'm assuming based on the way it was located here, it's outside of the buffer and then goes into our pads.
I feel like I should know that offhand, and I don't. Brad, do you know that? Or Jessica? Should ask Jessica first. Sorry, Jessica, do you know that?
I would absolutely punt that to Brad.
Can you repeat the question? I'm answering questions that council members regarding the planning commission right now. What was the question, Tom?
Can we put a trail in a buffer?
We can do anything we want. Typically, the answer is no, we don't want to. We have allowed developers to encroach upon the buffer occasionally, and we just have to be kind of careful about that from an operational standpoint. It'd be an engineering question, but we have on a very few occasions allowed encroachment upon the buffer.
Okay, but we aren't going to do mitigation or anything else to make that happen. I would think not. Yeah, okay.
Correct.
So as of right now, the pads for those homes are up against the buffer? Or
They are outside of the buffer, but so is the trail. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
And Tom, you guys recall when us having a conversation about this trail and going up so that it was going by that wetland or that area back there as it being an amenity of the trail?
I do not remember the discussion. I'm sorry. I might tomorrow, but tonight I don't.
No, that's okay. Okay. Or
I
Sharon,
would
do
just
you?
chime in. I do believe it was something that was highlighted in the Bass Lake Crossing development, that was, they needed some flexibilities, and that was a benefit that they provided, was accommodating this trail by working with actually Beth back in the day. So I think they shared that as a reason that they were assisting the city and should get some flexibilities. I don't know how that weighed with the approval process heavily or not. I don't know.
Can I just just add that we still the trail still does meander around the wetland, and we will also have a wetland and ponding off to the northeast of the trail too. So it'll actually be what we've done is kept the northwest point of this property is like a peninsula, and we are not proposing to develop it. There will be some ponding there, but it will be a nice open area. And actually, I think it will add to the aesthetics and the experience of, keeping that a nice nature area for walking. So it will, both sides of that trail and that peninsula is staying open and undeveloped. I think it will make for a nice trail. So
Now, one
I
of
have a
the,
question about the,
go ahead.
excuse me, is that how the villa people reach their homes? Is that how they drive into their garage? Through the cul-de-sac?
Yes.
That street benefits that street is for those villas. It's a kind of a single loaded street in that regard.
I got a question.
Okay, Val?
On the Bass Lake Crossing, okay, the trail itself they said there was some mowing and maintenance done to it last year. Is there, I don't know because I have not walked it. What type of surface is that trail?
It's
Or is it
pavement
just
bituminous.
path? Pardon?
It's a 8-foot wide paved bituminous path, so blacktop.
Oh, it's a paved trail that's already there?
Correct.
Mm. Okay.
Okay. Right. I think we could discuss whether we prefer the off-road trail or the new on-road trail. I'd like to hear what you think about that. Bill?
Yeah, so I guess I just kind of hearing this, like, I think most people would prefer an off-road trail going through kind of the forest or the wetland than a trail on a sidewalk next to a bunch of homes. So I think, yeah, the ability to connect to other trails, the ability to walk, I think is important, but the aesthetics are just as important. And it sounds like we're losing on that end if we make this switch. Now, I don't know kind of what was talked about beforehand, but kind of this is where we put the trail, this is where it is. Apparently the residents like it, at least the ones we've heard from. So the only reason to change it is to fit more houses into the development, which is a valid reason. But I think we have to weigh the kind of the needs of the current residents too. They're already there, they're using the trail. My guess is they want to keep that trail versus just putting it right on the sidewalk. And if I lived there, I probably would too. So that's my thought.
I agree, Phil. I agree with you.
Tom, what do you think?
Well, I think that the quality of the trail will be diminished no matter what happens in this lot, because there's going to be something there, and it's going to be, you know, either homes or nursing homes or, you know, something. I think that we're trading a 8-foot wide bituminous trail through somebody's backyard. And I think that would be the original proposal was to have the apartments butting up to the older development, and that received a pretty unfavorable response. So this is what the developer, Beth, and her crew has come back with, some homes that look like what's already next door, which I think that's good. That's good for developer. Good for you guys, Beth. That's a great, I think a good compromise. But the trail, whether it's on one side of those homes or on the other side of the homes, is still going to be through, right next to those properties. If it's on this cul-de-sac, is going to be have traffic from 13 villa homes, so it's going to be just minimally traveled. And I'm not sure what the width is, and I would be concerned about it being properly marked and all of that stuff. But you lose something, you gain what, and Beth is offering something in return, and that is to have a trail that runs across over more in the vicinity of Cook Lake, and that's a good thing. Cook Lake is most of it's in Maple Grove, but it's a visual presence. It's got a wide cattailed shoreline, and it's not deep, and it's only 16 acres. But we don't have a lot of lakes in Corcoran, and this is a piece of one. So that's a good thing. I think that the connectivity is being maintained. It starts in the, it doesn't, we don't lose anything there. So I guess I'm kind of okay with it.
Beth, I think you had mentioned the current residents of the villas. You said they'd prefer to have more villas behind them. Is that compared to a nursing home or compared to this trail?
Yeah, the original plan, as I remember, it had a 4-story either apartment or nursing home on the property line, and they were not happy with that at all. And I think for good reason. It was not the sight line that they were looking for. So this Beth's new plan has more of the same sort of housing that the current residents of Bass Lake Crossing are living in. So
Okay.
if you go then on the other side, then there's still apartments and senior care and the memory care all there. But it's not quite so close to Bass Lake Crossing,
Okay.
which is kind of the way development works, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess with like knowing that, yeah, the ideal is we keep the off-road trail. It's obviously a prettier trail. It's a, I'd say, a better trail. But we have to weigh kind of the needs of, well, the developer needs to get something developed there, and this is actually a good compromise because it's a house that's not going to offend anybody versus a giant building.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I guess for I don't know how we can kind of communicate this to council, but my message would be we prefer the off-road trail. However, we see the need to make the switch, and it does sound reasonable. That's kind of how I would go at it.
Got a question when you're done.
Yeah, I'm done.
What on our comp plan, this property, what is it zoned for? Brad?
Is it mixed residential, I believe? So it's a higher density in mixture.
But that's not apartment buildings and this type of, because they're asking for it to be rezoned.
Yeah, well, there's
I mean,
so
the
the current zoning, yeah,
just comes to us first on a trail, and then we say yeah, and then but I don't even. It's not even zoned. It's not even zoned for.
Yes, it is actually. It is. It's we're all within the housing is within the guiding. It's a mixed residential zoning. And let me just back up a little bit. Bass Lake Crossing was also zoned guided, not zoned, because it's all rural, right? So it's Bass Lake Crossing was guided mixed residential. They downzoned it when they came in and asked for, right? So it was when in your guide plan, the two properties are both guided mixed residential, which does allow for multifamily. It does.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree with Beth. The issue here, I think, is really the vision for a trail system. And when a developer comes in and wants to do something different than what our vision is, and whether that's just okay, we just adapt to it, or whether it's sticking to the guns, I think there is certainly a different, that's a different trail, right? An off-road trail versus looking out for 12 driveways. Again, it's a really short section and a really, really long trail. So this is a call of the Parks and Trails Commission of what your vision is for. It certainly impacts Beth and her development. There's no doubt about that. This is one of the most difficult sites I've worked with in Corcoran to get a project going on. You have transportation impacts. You got the Met Council lift station. You got a ravine in the middle. You got the Shoreland Overlay District with Cook Lake. This place is tough. So Beth is trying to do everything she can to make it work from a financial standpoint, which it has to from development. But your purview is what's best for the city and for the Parks and Recreation standpoint. The council, I think, can weigh on, yep, I get that, but this is a good development, so we can do something different. I think your job is to look at it from managing the best park system that you want to see in the community. That's the way I would personally look at it.
And I understand that, Brad, but it seems like, it starts with us and it's like, oh yeah, well, we'll let them change the trail, but then, it's like, oh, it just, I feel like it gets out of hand and I don't know.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
I'm not thrilled with it, that's all. And I don't get that way too often. We know that.
I think that it kind of sets a precedence that, every development is going to have a trail that looks like this, that's in people's front yards. And that's not really what we had in mind in connecting our trail system. Yeah, I agree with Val. I kind of remember a little bit of our old discussions about this section. It's a beautiful area with a wetland. So,
as you guys start to kind of, it sounds like you're leaning towards making a motion. I'll note that the motion that is in your enhanced agenda doesn't really have guidance on what you want to do as far as the on-road versus off-road trail. So even if you tried to go off of the one that's in there, you kind of have to edit it a little bit and tweak it to your preference. As that was something that you guys were going to have to discuss a little more in depth, then we could kind of guide you.
And with that, we can wordsmith it if you have your intent of a motion. Again, it's a motion. It's to recommend the council's consideration regarding this part of it. I'll also add, you're able to reach out to the council as an individual basis too if you feel different than whatever motion's passed.
And you're also obviously okay to continue discussing. It just seemed like you guys were starting to tee up for it. So I just wanted to give that as a note.
Val, well, I don't know, I think we're split on how we feel about the trail. That's the problem.
That's okay. We're an advisory board. We can split.
And what often helps
Should I
with the
just
council,
read it as it? Should I read it as it is and then we can just vote?
well, to Jessica's point, that's not very helpful, I guess. What happens oftentimes with the council that works well is when at this point, just teeing up is anyone wanting to make a motion on this, and you can work through the rest of it through the motion.
Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I will make a motion to, as guidance to the council, to keep the trail where it is at and not move it to the front of the villa homes. You can reword as needed.
So then I do have a question for Brad. Can we make this as separate motions focusing on our off-road trail, or does it all have to be that one motion? Or can we address the other two items separately in a different motion?
Um,
Oh, you're muted, Brad.
I guess I think the other part's really more direction. From the staff standpoint, that's our kind of guidance, is we think that trail should be extended down to County Road 10. That's the way we're moving. So I'm fine with really focusing on the off-road trail. Am I missing something, Jessica?
I pulled it from Kendra's packet directly, so it was just the sidewalk revisions and then the cash in lieu of land.
Yeah, I would just focus. If there's differences than what the staff direction is, that's fine. Otherwise, I'd work within just this for the motion.
Okay.
So there's a motion by Naibo on the table.
Is there a second?
Can you say the motion again?
do you want to read, Jessica?
So Val is making a motion to keep the trail as an off-road trail and not make it that on-road into the cul-de-sac, essentially.
Correct.
For lack of better words.
Okay. Yeah, I think for parks, that's kind of what we want. I mean, we want nice trails, we want nice parks, and this is definitely taken away from that. So yeah, I can still see the need. But boy, I'm kind of leaning towards we'd like to keep the trail where it is. My guess is it won't end up that way. But I think it's a much better trail system this way, at least this part of it is. So with that being said, I will second your motion, Val.
Okay.
I don't know if we can accept
vote.
it or not, but Judy did just text me and said I'm with Val. I don't know if that's an acceptable means.
Yeah, if it's official, huh? We see her there. Well, we see her name.
Yeah, I know she's here. She's here. Okay, roll call vote. Anderson,
No.
Christensen,
Aye.
Meister votes aye. Nybo
Aye.
and Judy, I wish you could give us a thumbs up, but we know what you're thinking.
According to Jessica. This is so hard, you guys. I can't wait till we have real meetings again.
I
don't
know,
know.
it is very hard.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh. Okay,
Thank you all, and I'll at the staff level, we'll follow up with Beth and talk through anything else before it goes to the planning commission, followed by the council as well. So thank you, and thanks for those who listened to the conversation as well.
absolutely. And Brad, the park dedication is covered?
Correct. Yep. So that's the direction moving forward, unless there was any real change you felt as a commission. But ultimately, I think that's pretty straightforward.
Okay, thank you. Okay, reports and information. Active planning applications. Information only. And Jessica, the recreation coordinator update.
Then I will assume that no one has any questions about active planning. So, and I do have a PowerPoint slide for this. Okay, so my days have been filled with baseball a lot. So has my inbox. I get a notification for every single registration that comes through so that I can monitor if they are Corcoran residents or if they fit the birth date criteria so that I don't have kids registering who are 4 for machine pitch, because that does occasionally happen. But so I've been monitoring baseball pretty closely. Again, I got numbers for you guys. We are now at 10% Corcoran residents, so we're about where we normally are. I'm sorry, I really am trying, but it does look like we are getting more people from Ravinia, so that's a positive. I will note that numbers are down compared to normal years, which I think part of it has to do with COVID and the uncertainty, and it just kind of comes with it. I would think that come soccer season, assuming baseball runs without a hitch and the guidance doesn't change too drastically, I think soccer we could see numbers being very similar to what they are most years. I have also, as part of social media, which is one of the bullet points on here, I have been increasing my presence for baseball on our social media platforms. It was in the newsletter, it's on the website, it's on the dynamic signs. I'm pushing it, I'm really trying, but it's one of those, when it's out of my control, I've kind of exhausted my options. So if anyone has any recommendations or knows a good way to reach out to more residents, I would be more than happy to listen. Other items, still, like Matt said, serving as the Emergency Operations Center manager, my tasks there have kind of weaned off a little bit just as I ramp back up for summer and kind of what you guys hired me for. So I am still attending multiple meetings a week as far as that's concerned, trying to stay up to date and monitoring MDH and CDC guidance, trying to keep everyone in the loop as much as possible, although Brad did come to me today with something that I didn't know about, and then they mentioned it in my afternoon meeting. So Brad might be the new EOC manager, I don't know. Other items, again, I put together your Parks and Trails packet, so if you see any real big errors, that's on me. Definitely bring it to my attention so that I don't do it again. The big thing this week and a good portion of last week that I've been working on, and I'm very excited to tell you guys about it, I put together that list of grant opportunities a while back. I think I told you guys briefly about it. It's an Excel spreadsheet. I've got all the due dates and everything. One of them is coming up. It is for the DNR. It is the chance at $75,000 towards the Bellwether Boardwalk, and I have spent a decent amount of time working on it, and I'm very hopeful that we get it, and Brad has been kind enough to review it with me. So I got high hopes. If we can get it, that would be wonderful, but that's kind of my big thing. I will keep you guys posted. We would know by June. So that's
Awesome.
pretty exciting.
Wow.
Biggest grant I've ever gone for.
Nice work. Yeah.
Excellent.
Other items, like I said, social media. I do oversee the Facebook and Twitter pages for the most part, with the exception of occasionally Brad and Jess will post on the Facebook about plowing or miscellaneous items as necessary. I updated the 2021 field and pavilion reservation form, as I have had some people interested in renting the pavilion. And then the final thing is soccer. I am starting to get people who are asking, well, are you going to run it? What's it going to look like? And as of right now, we are planning to run it, just like I'm planning to run baseball. The soccer season, I would imagine, will look a little differently. At this point, I'm exploring a couple of different options as far as 4 days a week instead of 2 to kind of spread out the numbers. It might look a little different, but I think we should still be able to run. And I've also begun referee recruitment, so that's super exciting because we've actually had a lot more people interested than this time 2 years ago. So I'm very excited about those items. And at this time, I am more than happy to answer any questions.
I had a
Val.
question. When
Val.
you, all right, well, I think Kevin was talking about it earlier, though. Did the pavilion get a new roof on it? He said something with insurance or, right, make sure it's talking.
He mentioned that they were looking at getting a new roof this year.
On the pavilion?
Yes, it was the warming house that got it over the
Already.
fall, late fall in
But was the
2020.
pavilion damaged? I thought I heard was it damaged in a storm or something?
Yes.
Well, since Kevin's apparently chosen to stay on the meeting the entire time.
Oh, he is still there. I didn't even notice.
Kevin, are you there? Do you want to answer the question? But I believe there's storm damage.
Okay.
So he's probably taking care of one of his kids. So there he is.
Yeah.
Don't tell my wife, but I didn't want to deal with a crying 1-year-old with a molar, so I stayed down here because of the Cook Lake project. So, yeah, yes, you're correct. There is it will be covered by insurance, according to Pat Meister. So I believe there's an insurance replacement on that roof to be coordinated this year.
So is there any chance we could collect insurance on the tennis courts and have them rebuild them for us? If Pat's in charge, he probably could get that, couldn't he?
He's probably exhausted that avenue to the extent we would want to. So.
Okay, all right.
Thanks, Kevin. I won't tell Carly.
All right, thank you.
And Jessica, I want to say, if you need help with anything, I'm here. I'm doing nothing, so.
Oh, trust me, when we get to the tree giveaway and we start putting together spreadsheets, that's when I usually pass it on to you guys, because then it's like April and I'm trying to run baseball and.
Oh, yeah. No, we got that. But any sports things that you need help with.
I'll let you know when I start painting fields for soccer.
Perfect. Perfect. I can get my steps in.
We'll get you a nice tan.
A nice Irish tan. Okay. Thanks, Jessica. Subcommittee and miscellaneous reports. City council report.
Yeah, and I'll take this one. Mayor McKee is on the planning commission right now. There's a pretty important topic right in the Hennepin substation. So we wanted to make sure he listened to that public hearing tonight. No offense to you guys. But he just asked me to provide any updates. The 3 things I will highlight, some exciting stuff. Pulte came forward with a concept adjacent to Bellwether. It's the Ben Blair Comm piece at 70 acres about. And it's actually to finish up the Bellwether development, which would wrap around that open space and neighborhood park and kind of finalize that dedication to the city. And it also would have a new single family component off of Stieg Road. So it's, gosh, 170-ish, 180 new homes up that way. But it's kind of exciting proposed development. Also, Medina has decided to reinitiate plans with Corcoran to plan Hackamore Road. And that also would include that trail on the north-hand side. So we'll see if we can keep that moving forward. And then just another exciting item, we kicked off, council approved a feasibility study to begin planning for City Center Drive. That's that parkway that starts at City Hall and bends through the future downtown Corcoran, which would go around St. Therese and everything else. So The feasibility study for City Center Drive, which I need a better name. If anyone has like Main Street, Corcoran something, I'm happy to hear a name on that, but some really exciting projects moving forward. I'm happy to answer any questions on anything council related. Or Tom can too.
Oh, that's awesome, I think. That City Center Drive, or whatever we're gonna give a new name to. That's super cool.
Where will that road go, Brad?
What was
Where
that?
will City Center Drive, where will it go?
Yeah,
Behind
so-
City Hall, did you say?
So the south entrance of City Hall would be the main entrance on the north end to downtown, the town center essentially. And then it, so it follows the south side of City Hall, kind of goes towards the woods. And then,
Yeah.
and then south to eventually connect to County Road 10. And in between that and 116 would be that St. Therese campus. That would also be the linear park as well. So we'd have that 120 odd foot linear park along 116 as well.
Awesome. All right.
So is the Hackamore Road project going to just kind of continue from where we left off a year ago, whenever it was?
Yeah, it was July of last year.
July of last year.
When Medina pulled out. So we just had a kickoff meeting yesterday or today. I honestly don't know. We're kicking it off again. We're also applying for a local road improvement program fund application through MnDOT to help pay for some of the costs as well. It's an expensive project, talking about 7 million or so. Ideally developer funded. We on the Corcoran side have done a nice job of obtaining developer funds and positioned ourselves to continue to do so. There's a little bit more of a gap on the Medina side, which makes their conversation a little more difficult.
Is that for paving and turn lanes and that type of thing into the developments?
Yeah, correct. It'd be turn lanes, widening a shoulder actually, again, along with a nice trail on the north-hand side, and adequate turn lanes into nearly all of the developments that exist as well, like Hunter, for example.
Okay.
And a little re-engineering to make that road a little safer. Part of it, there's a couple of bad spots on it, so bad sight lanes, I think. Yeah.
It would also involve cutting down that hill on the east side too,
Yeah.
and lowering that.
Okay.
You have a note, finance staff planning directed finance lead position. What's that?
Correct. As we continue to grow much faster than we can anticipate with our staff planning, we need finance help bad. Like right now we have really myself doing big picture stuff, Jessica Bizey providing more of the day-to-day supervision and jumping in where she can, and then Joe as our accountant. And we're doing 600 utility billing bills a month. We're adding, I think Joe said last month we added 21 new customers in 1 month, and that's not stopping, along with payroll, escrow management for developments, everything under the sun. So we need to bring in-house finance support as soon as possible. So the council gave me the blessing to move forward and draft a job description. We did put 75 grand in the 2021 budget for this. My initial thought was consultant help, but we need 40 hours a week. So it is a budgeted item that we'll move forward with.
Good. Well, yeah, good for you guys. Yeah.
Wasn't there a city planner being hired also? Am I correct on that, or am I way off?
No, you're exactly correct on that. Actually, Natalie joined us on Thursday of last week. She is currently attending her first planning commission meeting, which will likely be like 3+ hours, so good for her. And managing all the public comment opportunity on her for a Zoom call too. So I hope she's doing well right now on day 5, I guess, or whatever it is. But she was in City of Brooklyn Park before. She worked in their planning department. Her title was technically administrative assistant, but it was for the planning division in Brooklyn Park. She did over the counter answering every question. It was the kind of a support for the planning commission, getting everything set up, mailing notices, file management, initial reviews. So a lot of the same stuff she's going to be doing here. And so far, we're very happy with her. She sits right across from Jessica, unfortunately for her. That goes.
I would like to note that I think her and I have hit it off. She's very friendly. You guys will love her.
Good. Good. Now, is that, okay, so she's on staff now, okay. Who on the consulting side will be leaving us then? Would that be Kendra?
No one. No one. You know, we have so much going on at this point. My vision for Corcoran is to really staff with the main staff at the lowest need. So when things get slow, we are just fine. And anything beyond that, we kind of consultant up here and there. And with the development going on right now, we'd have to hire 4 planners to do that. So essentially, Kendra's still going to work on the higher stuff. You know, it's not a senior planner position. It's really more that, you know, entry level where you're doing the file management, answering zoning questions as much as possible. But when you're talking about developers agreements and preliminary plats and comprehensive plan amendments, it's very, very technical. EAWs and EISs, and it gets very challenging. So we'll still need senior level support for quite some time.
Okay.
But the good part is 40 hours a week, someone comes in and asks a question, someone's there to answer it. So that's the good part for Corcoran residents.
Sure. Sure. Good.
Well, this sounds like it's a good position for somebody coming in. They can grow with a position, and that's good for Corcoran. It's good for the employee. That's a good thing. So good.
Well, and she's coming from a really big city, so that really helps as we're growing. Oops, I suppose you can't hear me.
No, we can't.
Okay, are we garden club report, Tom?
Well, I don't have anything new, but well, we're doing the trees. Yeah, Jessica did a wonderful job getting it all set up, and I had about 20 people who tried to get trees last year and they were too late or something else went wrong, and I let them know, and so they've ordered their trees for this year, and then one of these days I'll send out a note to everybody who ordered trees last year, and then they'll order a bunch, and it's been out on Facebook, and so people who, and it was in the newsletter, so people know about it. And nice trees this year, good,
Yeah.
you know, trees. Yeah, it was hard to pick. So 600 of them. So
yeah. Thank you for doing that.
Awesome.
Sure. So Jessica, I have a
park dedication.
Yeah, parks
sorry,
dedication. Tom. No, that's good. I was going to parks dedication. I have a question on the very last number on the very last sheet. It says Grove Nursery, and it's $438. Are you with me, Jessica?
Yes. Is this the question of why is it under park dedication and not memorial park maintenance?
Yes.
Because I have already addressed that with Joe, but as we discussed earlier, Joe is very short on time, which is also why you don't have any interest allocations. So Joe does know about it. He got an email. I did catch that because I was like, we just had a conversation about this. That was for the Memorial Garden. So he does know. He's trying to get not that this isn't incredibly important, but he's trying to make sure we get paid. And I'm not going to tell him he's wrong.
No, stay on Joe's good side. He does, he does a lot of good stuff. We're going to concentrate on the positive stuff. If I have an issue, I'll call him and talk to him. Yeah.
Perfect. But yeah, no, that will get adjusted. He hasn't had a chance to update this part. So while it says January 11th, it is the most recent, but it's also nothing has really changed since October just because of lack of time. So I appreciate your patience.
Way to stay on top of everything.
Had to make sure if I had to crack the whip.
Other business announcements? Anybody? Okay, then for the liaison calendar, Everybody good with it? Any switches?
I'm on for next week instead of Alicia, the 25th.
Okay,
And I got her packet because we switched. Does any of this make sense? I got the one for last time. So will you just put me down for the packet for next
Yeah.
week?
I'll let
Thank you.
Michelle know. Sorry about that.
Oh,
It's
no.
possible I could have not
Well,
changed
we
it.
pulled the switch and all that, so it's no big deal. Not at all. But I plan on, well, that'll be a Zoom one, correct? Okay. And I can just be dark in the corner like
Judy.
Kevin, right?
Kevin.
Judy.
For the council meeting?
Yep, you can have your glass of wine. No one will know.
Okay, okay.
You heard it here.
Okay, I just didn't know. Yeah, I've never done one to listen to any other meetings, so maybe I'll have to. Huh.
Okay, other than that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. Did we get one out there second?
Okay. Roll call. Right, Anderson,
Aye.
Christensen,
All right.
aye from Meister, and Nibel.
Aye.
And goodbye, Judy.
Yeah.
Hope you had a good night.